is an electoral process. There has to be a sanctity to it, and let nobody have any apprehensions that something which is expected is not being done. In simple words, let nobody be concerned that the job that the Election Commission of India is meant to be doing is not being done. These are the Supreme Court's oral observations as India votes to elect its next union government, the mother of elections in India. While this sets the premise, what followed is surely the right of a voter to know. As you and I prepare to vote in 5 phases across the country, so while you decide on the candidate of your choice, stay with us as we take you through this very important journey on EVMs, VVPATs with experts. But first, let's try and understand what the petitioners said in the court. Your right to a voter's slip. Should you get a VVPAT slip after voting, like during the paper ballot times? Advocate Nizam Pasha saying voters' privacy cannot be used to defeat voters' right. A huge statement. The Election Commission's counsel said the petition's request for a return to ballot paper voting system is a retrograde suggestion. Let me repeat this. To a question when asked, can a voter slip be given after the voting on the EVM VVPAT, the Election Commission's counsel said the petitioner's request for a return to ballot paper voting system is retrograde suggestion. Prashant Bhushan argued that the light on the VVPAT machine should remain on at all times. Currently, it stays on for 7 seconds, and we'll just bring that visual out for you for those who may have not voted before or just want to understand it better. If it stays on at all times, Prashant Bhushan argued, at least the voter can see the slip cutting and falling into the drop box of the VVPAT. And the privacy will not be compromised as well. Also, references to Kerala, where there have been bogus or extra votes that have counted during dry runs. Complaints by Left and Congress, where extra votes were recorded for the BJP in Kasaragod. But remember, Rajiv Chandrasekhar has also claimed that a similar complaint has been filed in Trivandrum by the BJP, where extra bogus votes were found for Congress's Shashi Tharoor during, of course, all of this during the trial runs. Now, senior advocate Sanjay Hegde has sought for a separate audit for greater accountability. Now, let's try and understand the 7 seconds light flashing point that came up in court, and for that we'll also try and get you an imagery. It's important to note how does the VVPAT function. This is what the ECI says, and you'll have a demonstration on your screen as well. VVPAT machine is attached to a ballot unit of the EVM. Provides visual verification for the vote cast by a voter. The printer paper slip with voter's choice on it. The slip of the paper contains the candidate's serial number, name and party symbol. That's what you just saw right now. The slip displayed in machine behind a glass window, which is also sometimes referred to as a tinted glass, and will come up in the court's hearing as we describe it further. This glass window gives the voter 7 seconds to verify vote slip, which falls into a compartment underneath. That's the party symbol that you're seeing, the 7 seconds flash that you really saw. Now, what has Election Commission told the court? When asked to allay fears, let's take you through some key points before we allow experts to take over. When the court asked how a voter can check if his or her vote has been cast, a very important question. You and I would have the same question. This is what the ECI said. That the demonstrations and awareness programs are run. The Election Commission has also said that the voting machines get allocated to constituencies randomly. No spurious unit can be connected to them. They will only recognize sister units. Now, when this answer is given to a question on how can the voter check if his or her vote has been cast, this is the answer given to that question. Essentially, the Election Commission of India is saying that there cannot be any tampering that is possible in this. But how much of this answers that question? We leave it for the court's verdict to come out on that, and also the experts who are there on the panel. Now, another question that was asked at the court, that the court asks is there a possible mismatch between votes polled and counted? The Election Commission of India's response: votes recorded only after the VVPAT confirmation. The false sensor detects the paper slip and fall into a sealed box. If there is an error in this procedure, the vote will not be registered. The court, in fact, the Election Commission of India has claimed that there's never been a mismatch issue. We'll come to that as well. Can EVMs be tampered after polling, after voting? The Election Commission of India has said no tampering is possible. Remember, this has become a huge opposition uproar as well. Irrespective of which party has been at opposition time and again, whether in the states or at the center, this has been an issue that has come up several times. Now, the ECI has again told the court that there's no tampering possible. The EVMs are sealed after the poll, and the control unit is switched off. The ballot unit is sealed. But can the poll officers see the results on the polling day? The ECI has claimed that even the polling officer cannot see these results. The result button is sealed before the polls begin, in fact, and sealed in the presence of the polling agents. When the court asked if there was any software in the VVPAT printer, the Election Commission of India has said no. They've gone to explain that 4 megabyte flash memory in every PAT, which stores symbols. The returning officer prepares the electronic ballot, which is loaded into the symbol loading unit. It will give a serial number, name of the candidate, and symbol. Nothing is preloaded. It is not data. It is an image format, is what the Election Commission of India has said. Now, the Supreme Court has also said that there is a trust factor. Now, this is important as well. That there is a trust factor, and why has the Supreme Court said this? There seems to be some disconnect between what you are telling us and what is available in the public domain. That needs to be bridged. But the Election Commission of India has also claimed that they have nothing to hide. But in the end, the court also had some strong words for the petitioners, including Prashant Bhushan, saying, "You're going too far. Everything can't be suspected. Please also appreciate if they have done something good. We heard you because we are also concerned. Does everything have to be explained to you?" And when a petitioners' counsel pointed out that many developed countries have left the EVM voting system, the Supreme Court said, "Don't think that foreign countries are more advanced than India." The court, of course, has reserved the order after hearing arguments from both sides. At this point, let us get you some very important perspectives from different sides. Major General Anil Verma joins us right now. He's the National Coordinator and Head for ADR. Thank you very much, Major General Anil Verma, for joining us. Sir, again, as I always say on this show, without getting into technical words and jargons, if the words can be left very simple for the lay people to understand. Now, for ordinary citizens to understand. Now, my first question to you, sir, with what's unfolded in the court today, the arguments and the counters and the responses that you've heard, ADR is, of course, a petitioner in this particular case, but what do you make out of it with what the Election Commission of India has told the court?
See, the Election Commission explained in great detail the technical points, as to how the things are done, which is fine. But if we go back into history, you see how the whole thing started. Why were VVPATs introduced? It was basically because of the trust factor. You see, the EVM was always there before that also, but in 2013, when this process started, and then the thing went from High Court to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said, okay, let's have some random checking of, 5 VVPATs from random places in a constituency. Then the political parties were not satisfied, and again there was the Chandrababu Naidu and some other parties which again went to Supreme Court, and they demanded 25 to 30% this thing. So the basic principle which is followed in the other democracies, notwithstanding the comments of the judges on the foreign countries and all, the basic principle is three. One is vote is casted as intended. Secondly, recorded as cast. And third, counted as recorded. Now here what we have is one thing is being done. It is being recorded. But the voter doesn't get to know whether it is actually counted as recorded or whether it has actually, you see the VVPAT slip, he or she gets that 7-second window in which to see the thing. And that also earlier it used to be a transparent glass, which has now been made into a tinted glass for I don't know what reasons. Notwithstanding that, that is why the demand was that, just to rule out all doubts which the people have, the political parties have, why not have a counting of the VVPAT slips? Because it will only take a few extra days. If you have a election campaign and season which is spread over 45, 46 days, what difference does it make if you have 2 or 3 extra days for counting the votes? Now the ECI has also said that there are resources problem, more people will be required on all that. So what? That can be done, but at least all fears will be set aside. We are not saying that the EVM can be tampered or they have been tampered in the past or whatever. The basic thing was that these three principles must be followed.
Okay. Now, while you're not saying that, EVMs can be tampered, you're talking about the principles to be followed, and very validly. There are two questions very quickly that I want to ask you, sir. The first question, these points that you have brought about have been in the public domain in the past as well. In fact, they have come up before the court several times in the past as well. Why is this then not getting the kind of, it's not fair to say attention. I mean, it has got a lot of attention. Every time there's a lot of discourse around it. But if it is such genuine and such huge concern that you're raising, which the court, by the way, has also called it a trust deficit. Do you see this as an issue of trust deficit, or is it something that you see as a systematic challenge or something beyond?
See, it is more of a trust deficit. That is why the Election Commission has to be more forthcoming. If you recall, the opposition parties had been demanding a meeting with the ECI on this issue for quite some time. And the ECI refused to meet them. They said, we've already put out in the public domain, whatever is there, there's nothing to discuss. So that is what the more engagement is required with the parties, opposition parties and the voters. They must listen to the concern. Okay. Of course, the technical people, the technical team of the Election Commission gives its own version that they cannot be tampered, the EVMs are standalone machines and all that. But all the IT experts outside, they say anything can be done. So you see, this okay. Mismatch is there.
All right. And my last question. Okay. And my last question, do you think that there's also a political discourse that irrespective of which party seems to be in opposition has raised this issue at some point but has remained silent when they have been in the ruling? Has that also hijacked the sentiment behind what is being raised as a big concern?
That is true to some extent because people have written books about it who are now defending it. You are aware whom I am referring to. That fact is there. When they win, then they do not complain. But otherwise, when they are in the opposition, they do complain. But I may also tell you that in 2021, under Justice Lokur, after he retired, there was a committee set up. And they also gave a number of recommendations along the same lines as we have mentioned in our petition.
All right. Major General Anil Verma, thank you very much for joining us. And I hope like you and all other stakeholders, that our voting and our election system this time would be as strong as India's democracy boasts of being. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I'm also being joined right now by Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, who is a former Chief Election Commissioner. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us at this point. Qureshi Saab, just a couple of things that I have to ask you. One, how do you look at what's unfolded in the court today? The responses, the concerns raised by the petitioners, the responses by the ECI, as well as the observations by the Supreme Court. When you look at them with a bird's eye, what do you make out of it?
Well, I get the feeling that although the debate continued for 2 days, but there was a bit of lack of clarity. Certain things were very confusing. Solutions were also not very, very clear. But in any case, since Supreme Court has heard it in detail for 2 days, all the points of view, I'm sure they've reserved the order. They will come up with something which will satisfy. One thing has come out very clearly, that there is a very large public distrust in the EVM which needed to be addressed. And the fact that political parties have been wanting to meet the election commission, and election commission for months has not met them, that to my mind is absolutely not acceptable. Meeting political parties is our mandate, our responsibility. They are the most important stakeholders after the voters. They just want to meet you, meet them. If you have nothing to hide, meet them, discuss with them, and they are sensible people, you are sensible people. If you sit across the table, either you convince them or they will convince you, and you will find a solution, which is how VVPATs were introduced. It was in my time. General Verma very rightly mentioned that at that time it was the BJP which was opposing the EVM. They even wrote a book on the subject. And all we did, we called all party meeting, asked them what is the problem. They said, no, we don't say that the EVMs have been manipulated in the past or will be manipulated in the future. All that we are saying, there is no transparency, meaning thereby when you press a button, the vote is going into a machine, but whether it is going to the right place or not, we can't see. So we asked them, what is the solution you offer? They said, introduce VVPAT. We like the idea. And VVPAT was born. Immediately, we asked the company to develop VVPAT, and it has been going on. Now, the debate should be around how many VVPATs to be counted. That is the debate. Instead of just 5 in every assembly segment, which is 250 to 300 polling booths, only 5 counted. People are not satisfied. They want more. They want 100%, which may or may not be possible. But again, Election Commission's reply that it will take 5-6 days, 10-12 days. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I tell you why. We have all done elections on the ballot paper age. And ballot papers used to be sometimes of the size of a newspaper with 20, 30, 40, 70 candidates. And finding the names of those candidates, putting the ballot paper in the right box. Despite all that, we used to declare the results in 12 hours, 16 hours, 20 hours, and this VVPAT that we are talking about is just this size, 3 inches, right? So, and with only one name, putting it in this box, this tray, that tray, is a matter of seconds. And then deploy more manpower. If one man takes 5 minutes for a cup of tea, how many minutes will be taken by 100 people? 5 minutes. Put more teams. After all, 15 million people are deployed for election duty. For counting, there are only 10,000. Make it 20,000. So to say that it will take 4 or 5 days is absolute rubbish. And if it takes 5-6 hours, 10 hours, even 24 hours.
No, hold on. Since you're talking about this point, Qureshi Saab, let me just break this down and let's just spend a minute 30 seconds on this if you can explain this. Now, you're raising this particular point. The court also asked them why it takes 1 hour to count VVPAT of one poll station. And the Election Commission's response is manual counting process is detailed, involves verification, segregation, bundling, recounts and verifications add time. Could you explain this to us?
Yeah, actually, Election Commission should have explained to the court, because all we need to do when we open the box containing the VVPAT slips, every slip has only one name in it, just one name. So we find out that name and put it in the right tray, pick it up and put it in the tray. What verification are we talking about? Just keep putting it in the proper tray, and once it has been put in the proper tray, then you start counting those slips. There. Now, if whole ballot paper of the size of newspaper could be counted in 12 hours, why should it take 4 or 5 days? That is something I fail to understand. And secondly, why not put more teams? It is not the same team which will count everything. The team which is counting 5 ballot papers as of now. So if you ask them to count the remaining also, instead of that, put alternative parallel teams for double the team, double number of teams, 3 times the number of teams, so that the whole thing can be done quite early.
All right. Okay. Now, another question that I'm going to ask you. When the court asked how a voter can check if his or her vote has been cast, this was a question asked by the court. At least from what I can make out, I could not make out any clear answer from what the Election Commission has said. Now, let me read out the answer to you, because you would be able to be a better interpreter than me, definitely. So this is what the ECI said when they were asked this question. The ECI said that the demonstrations and awareness programs have been run. The Election Commission also said that the voting machines get allocated to constituencies randomly. No spurious unit can be connected to them. They will only recognize sister units. They'll only recognize units. Now, is this an answer that explains the question that was asked by the court? Because I couldn't get much of it, except the fact that I thought the ECI was trying to explain that there's no possibility of tampering.
Yeah, actually, everything that you just now mentioned, all is relevant, all is important, but totally irrelevant to the question that was raised. Here, the question was totally about the counting of the VVPAT, where that the machines are randomized, how they go there, everything. All that is very important, but it is a different thing. Here, we are only counting of the number of VVPAT, and also for the voter to verify. Now, voter verification there are two concepts in VVPAT: voter verification and paper audit trail. Now, voter verification is that voter is satisfied the vote is going to the place where I wanted it to go, and he will see it in the printer screen, and which is where it will stay for 7 seconds. Now, the one question has been raised that originally the screen used to be very clear glass. Now it is opaque, and as General Verma also said, I don't know for what reason it was made opaque. Let it be clear and transparent. Okay. So, secondly, nobody has discussed in the whole thing. Why 7 seconds? Because 7 seconds sometimes may be too little, because it's not that when you go there, straight away you're staring at the screen and in 7 seconds you register. You are looking around there, left, right, and sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. And if you don't see it on the screen and in 7 seconds it disappears, you feel something has gone wrong, which is not correct. But 7 seconds can easily be increased to 12 seconds, because our machine is designed in such a way for 12 seconds the machine becomes dead. And even the presiding officer from the control unit cannot make it alive, which has been designed to check the booth capturing. What used to happen was that somebody will come, capture the booth and keep pressing.
Okay, Qureshi sir, one more question before. This is my last question. This is my. We have to go to the next panel. Qureshi sir, one question. When asked about can the voter get a voter slip, the Election Commission of India said it's a retrograde system. How do you look at that?
Well, I would not call it retrograde, but in any case, I don't find it acceptable, because it will be subject to misuse. Because we know voter behavior, we know political parties' behavior. What will happen is, suppose I am the person who is a voter and who has been paid 5,000 rupees to vote, and they want a proof. So what I will do is, I'll take a slip of this size in my pocket, and when the slip is given to me, that slip I'll keep in my pocket, and a bogus empty slip I'll put in the box and show it to my masters who had given me 5,000. and this way it will be cycled. So this malpractice is absolutely possible, and we cannot allow that to happen. Therefore, handing it over to the person, and then he will put it down. So, and how many million people integrity we will watch this way? It's not necessary. But what we, in fact, there is a technical solution. If you listen to me carefully, one technical solution that
30
provides two
seconds,
buttons,
sir, if
red
you
and
could.
green.
Wrap, sir.
Yeah, two buttons, red and green. When I'm satisfied, yes, this is the person I've chosen, I press the green button. That is the voter verification. Then only it gets cut and goes into the box. No handing over, but at least satisfaction is guaranteed that I've pressed the green button. And this is being done in some countries. And this is a very doable thing. Introduce it in the next generation.
No, but then if the green
or
button
even
is
in
not
the current
pressed, what do you do?
Pardon me?
If the
Pardon?
green button is not pressed, if the voter is not satisfied, is confused for whatever reason, that whether he has done it, whether it's gone, it's the first time he's doing it or she is doing it, what do you do then?
Yeah. No, there is a red button. I mentioned there are two buttons. Green button is when you're satisfied. Red button is when you're not satisfied. And when you press the red button, there will be an alarm. The whole process will be stopped till the matter is settled. So there is a red button to raise alarm.
Right. Okay. Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, thank you very much for joining us. As always, bringing in some very direct perspective, sometimes perspectives that make you think. Thank you very much, S.Y. Qureshi, for joining us on this very, very important issue. And as India votes for the next union government, as I said earlier, we only hope and believe that the election system and the election process will be robust and strong. I'm being joined right now by R.S. Patania, who's the spokesperson for BJP, as well as Sanjay Jha, who's an author. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. R.S. Patania, I believe you've heard our panelists.
Please.
So even what the court has said, a trust deficit. Now, you may say that it's the Election Commission of India's job. Fair enough.
Please.
But it's also the BJP that has been ruling this country consecutively.
Absolutely.
Could they have also done better to ensure that this trust deficit, if at all, if that's what you want to take from the court, could be bridged?
Yes. Sneha, thanks and a very good evening to everybody on board and to all the people who are directly viewing your show. Let me first of all, before going on to the matrix of my arguments, the Supreme Court has not said anything. The Supreme Court is yet to pronounce its judgments. It has reserved its judgment. These are the stray observations which are hitting the headlines and creating news on each and every news channel. So far as the matter issue is concerned, India at the rate of 75, Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav, we are still a democracy in a state of churn. Right from 1947, we started in local panchayats, people used to raise their hands and then voting used to take place. We came with paper-made ballots, then we came with photo voter lists, and ultimately this EVMs and now VVPATs also. So my point remains, the over-scepticism, this over-suspicion, this is out and out to damage the very essence and edifice of our democracy and the institutions which pivot around the democratic system also. So not even on a single issue, with due respect or responsibility.
Let me just take it. Let me get in the introductory remarks. Sanjay Jha, you've heard what R.S. Patania has said. We've also had panelists who are petitioners in this case, like ADR, as well as S.Y. Qureshi, the former ECI, who was also on the show. Now, my question to what R.S. Patania has said, let me just bring it to you. He's calling this over-suspicion. But the fact remains, whatever you want to call it, it's a considerable part of the Indian population and the voters who are going through this. Who's responsible for this?
Sneha, first and foremost, congratulations for you for doing a program on the subject. This is a very relevant matter, which is very critical for all Indians to know, because we start the voting process tomorrow. Mr. Patania seems to be a very reasonable man, which is very unusual for somebody from the BJP. But he said that the democracy is under churn. I hope Mr. Modi doesn't fire him, because Mr. Modi goes to town saying India is a mother of democracy already. But anyway, on a serious note, you see, there is only one issue on which I'm sure even Mr. Patania will agree with me, that when a person votes in an EVM machine, Mr. Pathania will probably vote for the BJP. I will vote for the Congress, whatever. That vote must go to that candidate and to that political party. That is what you expect in an absolutely impeccable democracy. And we should be one. Come on, because, we are not a startup country. We have been independent for a long time. We are a functioning democratic republic, despite all the problems we have. And I think the assurance that if I vote for one candidate in a party, that should go to that particular candidate or the party. If there is even an iota of doubt, and I would expect Mr. Pathania to agree with me here, that if there is an iota of doubt which says that 0.002% or 1% is not really going to happen, then let me tell you, Sneha, in voting in a democracy, you don't have the luxury of a margin of error. There is no margin of error like you have in an opinion poll or an exit poll. The vote must go to the candidate. This is a place where you need 100% accuracy, because people can win by 100 votes in a Lok Sabha election. They can win by 50 votes in an assembly election. Now, if there is no assurance of that, especially not because the counting is wrong, because there is somewhere of fear that technology is susceptible to infiltration and hacking. Now, I'll tell you this because all of us, I think, are well-read and well-informed, and I'm sure I'm right in assuming that. You live in the age of AI. You live in the age of people whose job is to be professional hackers. There are people who actually have an industry. There's an industry flourishing which actually survives on breaking into systems. And by the way, if the Pentagon can be hacked, if some of the most sophisticated, political and defense systems can be hacked, if the maximum worry we have in India today is about Chinese cybersecurity threats, what is an EVM? And I want to make one last point, Sneha, before Mr. Pathania and you come in. There is a company in India that makes EVMs, and suspiciously enough, there are some members of the ruling party who happen to be directors in that company. Now, these are things that will cause concern to anybody. Today, Mr. Pathania is in power. Tomorrow, he may be in opposition. And I don't think it's about opposition or in power. We need a foolproof, faultless, impeccable system to ensure that not a single vote is going wrong. If there is no guarantee of that, we must reconcile VVPAT with EVM. Even if it takes 4 days longer, we can watch movies, we can watch some IPL, but at least we'll get 100% reliable result in 2024.
Okay. All right. RS Pathania, I'm going to give you a few minutes because I also gave Sanjay Jha a little longer time to respond. So for equal time, I'm going to give you considerable time. Giving you 2 questions, taking it forward from where Sanjay Jha left. One, he's asking about the stakeholders for those who are in the company that's part of making these EVMs. But there's also another part, and both our earlier panelists spoke of EVMs, sorry. And there's another part to it, and that's 2 other panelists on our show also spoke about it. BJP had actually, there was a book written about how EVMs and VVPATs are not, they can be manipulated and things can go wrong with it. And today they are standing strongly in defense of the system. What changed?
Yes, Sneha, one thing which is very, very clear and categoric, this is the litigation between a party and Election Commission of India. Though we don't wish to take sides, but the ultimate side of the story remains that almost more than 3,000 complaints raised till now against the efficacy, against the independence, against the fairness of EVMs. This is what the Election Commission of India's counsel apprised the
Including
Honorable Supreme Court.
BJP, by the way. Including BJP. That even wrote a book.
That's what I'm saying, madam. That's what I'm saying. Not even a single complaint had any substantial evidence. Not even a single complaint. Not even in 0.0%. My dear sir,
including the book written by BJP?
And 0.01% also. So in cases, there's a particular, with due respect to what Mr. Sanjay Jha said, and with due respect to what has been urged before the Honorable Supreme Court of India also, there's a particular team, a toolkit camaraderie in the country. They question the Pulwama martyrs. They call Naxalites as martyrs, and then virtually they question the EVMs also. My very, very lead question: once the Congress won Karnataka,
But
Once the
Hania,
Congress
sir,
won
I have
Himachal
requested
Pradesh.
you this many
Let me
times.
explain question for this.
Let's stick to the topic. I am
Yes.
sure there's enough rhetoric in the topic also, sir. बहुत masala hai yahan pe. We don't need to get into those things, sir. Let's not trivialize issues that we are discussing, please, sir.
If in one sentence I have to sum it up, there are adequate safeguards, rigorous testings, and
नहीं, आप
this is
3
a global
sentences
phenomenon.
लीजिए, that's okay. But please talk about the topic, sir.
I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. I started with this is a democracy in a state of churn. First of all, 2009, Subramaniam Swamy versus Election Commission of India. Then once again, 2018, Chandrababu Naidu versus Election Commission of India. Then once again, Mahua Mitra and ADR versus Election Commission of India. So ultimately, these VVPATs and EVMs, they have virtually found their way to the rumble and tumble of various honorable Supreme Court. They have stood the litmus test of the honorable Supreme Court and the various high courts also. And today also, the honorable court has not put any final judgment. They are just stray observations of the court. So it would be a bit premature and a bit precautious to rest our assumptions and presumptions on the stray observation of the honorable Supreme Court also. So my respectful submission remains: we need to trust.
Point taken.
We need to trust the democracy. We need to trust the people around. We need to trust the institutions. We need to trust each and everybody across the board. This is the basic punchline. And with due respect to what Mr. Sanjay Jha ji said, sir, if
Aris Patania, in fact, that's exactly what the opposition is saying they're not able to do. But I take your point, and I'm going to take that further to Sanjay Jha. Aris Patania has a point. This case has come up several times before the court.
Yes.
The court has heard them, sometimes extremely exasperated at the petitions that has come before the court. So he does have a point. There have been several petitions. That being one point, and we are not getting to try and look at what the verdict would be, which way should it go. We're not getting into a case that is sub judice. But we're trying to understand this case has gone before the court several times. And the court is saying, the judgment is not out, but the court did mention, is this a case of trust deficit? Of course, we don't know if that's what it's finally arrived at. Now, the second point, Sanjay Jha, is this all hijacked by political rhetoric? Because the fact also remains, just like BJP, whenever Congress has won the elections, it's never objected. It's never gone ahead and said, we are not going to accept this because we have won and we don't believe in EVMs. Or, it's political convenience.
Sneha, a very valid question. Let me try and answer it for you very quickly. First and foremost, I think the opposition is being so reasonable and fair. People have cast their doubt on the integrity of the EVM being 100% foolproof. They have not said do away with the EVM. What are we asking? We are saying keep the EVM, but at the same time, make sure that there is a counter check, some kind of an audit trail to ensure that the EVM counting matches the VVPAT. If it does, there is no question. If the BJP wins, so be it. If the opposition wins, so be it. It is basically to make sure that in any democracy, Sneha, you heard what happened in Pakistan recently, right? They also say that their election system has got all the due diligence. And you actually had a gentleman, a very senior man, who said that I have to say that the results were rigged. Any place, we are all very mature people. We know technology. We've seen Pegasus, iPhones, everywhere they can be hacked. There is very sophisticated software that can infiltrate any of the most sophisticated machines in the world. My second point, this accusation that the opposition is dubious or hypocritical.
We haven't really come across any such instance of a EVM being hacked, have you? I haven't been able to see any legal reports on it or any credible.
Not even a single.
Sneha, there are hundreds of instances.
And not India. I'm not talking about India only, Sanjay Jha, anywhere.
Well, let me tell you that there are countries have gone away from the EVM to the ballot paper because they have realized that they cannot rely on it because there's a potential for manipulation. But make my last point for you, Sneha. The very fact that the Congress having won Telangana, Karnataka, Himachal, Trinamool Congress having won West Bengal, nobody's denying that. You have the DMK which won in Tamil Nadu. Despite winning these states, we are saying we are not happy because we still don't have 100% foolproof system. I think the BJP needs to understand that we are aware that we won these elections, Patani. We are not saying that the EVM is is necessarily to be discarded, but it is not enough on its own. And because we have one and we are still asking it to be
Okay.
verified, you need to take it seriously. Why are you the only party which is not agreeing to this in
All
principle?
right.
We are, with due
All right.
respect,
I,
we are ready.
okay,
We are
30
open-minded.
seconds, RS Pathania. I
So then
don't have
join the
more time, RS
petitioners.
Pathania. I was going to wind up the show, but you're speaking something. So 30 seconds, please.
So
Join the petitioners.
my last point, the only point which is being raised by Mr. Sanjay and the petitioners, the ultimate petitions, this is 100% VVPAT checking, which is absolutely impracticable and virtually impossible also. Rule 16.6 says 1%
Okay.
random VVPAT checking, and ultimately Supreme Court says 5% random VVPAT checking. If you go for 100% VVPAT cross checking, this means
Okay.
results to be announced within a period of 4 to 5 days, and the ultimate right of a voter to has a secrecy of his vote, which is most sacrosanct and which is most respectable in a democracy.
Yes,
So
that's
this
also
is
something
just
that
an
the ECI
absurd
has repeatedly spoken in
argument
court as
which
well.
cannot be accepted. Which cannot be accepted. This is my lead point, madam.
All right.
So
Okay,
we
we're
are-
quickly out of time. RS Pathania, Sanjay Jha, thank you very much for joining us. There's only one thing that I can say. We may have a lot of questions, even unanswered questions, but there is one thing that is certain, and that is your and my right to vote and to decide the next government. As we begin to vote, I must make this one appeal before the show ends. We all must go out and vote. Thank you very much for joining